Bonjour. Relocating from the United States to France and going through the French medical system about a million years before I thought it would ever occur because of my having developed osteonecrosis and getting 2 new hip surgeries here. And then my adult son, who's a specimen athlete and 23 years old now, he's also gotten 2 surgeries here now to clean up things that weren't handled properly in the United States, even though I was paying a 4-figure amount of money a month for insurance. That's the topic of this video. I had no idea that a bad leg that I believe I injured in California in November of 2023 was actually a hip injury, and that I would end up requiring 2 new hips. Here's how it went. In California, I sought some care. I was directing what I thought the test should be, and I said I think I need an x-ray to make sure I don't have a fracture and a couple other things, and the practitioners were agreeing with me and didn't get the right testing done. And I didn't learn that until I came to France, where there is not the concern with costs. France wants to just find out what's wrong and fix it. And France does not agree with the concept of pre-existing conditions. And I also understand you need to verify this, that if you become very, very, very sick, I believe, like for catastrophic illness, France takes care of all of the costs, I think. I mean, you have to be a resident here and meet certain conditions for residency, but I think that's how it works. And so you don't have to worry about passing the hat and being ruined financially and setting up a GoFundMe account and being denied coverage and so on. You get the care. And that was part definitely of my decision process of moving, because I found myself suddenly single and divorced, and looking at, being alone the rest of my life. And I thought, wow, I better have a way of being in a safer economy that handles medical differently. So this was in one of the top 3 decisions for my moving over here. I just didn't understand that I would be needing major medical the way that I have. And I won't go into Guy's experiences, my son. I'll just focus on the hip replacement. I'll first get into the costs. Per hip, it was roughly 8,000 euro. Now, my deductible in California was almost that, without even the copays and everything. So I know I'm ahead on that, and I should be reimbursed for 70 to 80% of this once I put in my forms, because I've been approved for the Vital and I qualified for it before these surgeries. Each hip had such extensive pre-op appointments that I'm astonished. I don't know what you need to do in the United States to get a hip replaced. But these even included my getting dental exams. And again, I don't know if that's standard, but it was exhaustive. It's the word I keep using to explain this. My post-op, and I have other reels on this or other videos, I had 31 days of home care nurses coming in every morning to give me anti-blood clot shots, and twice weekly with the second hip replacement. The first one was once a week, but with this last one in March, twice weekly blood draws to make sure that everything was okay. And that was about €450 for 31 days of home care nurses. Try that in the United States. And physical therapy, 15 one-hour sessions, about €450. And that's not in the house. I have to walk an entire half block, okay, from my house for that. And I'm seeing the gal again now. I have 4 more sessions from my hip surgery in March, and I skipped a couple of weeks because I was doing so well. It was really different than the first time. Now I have 2 new hips, so my body is getting formidable. Really excited to be 62 years old and starting out with a new set of hips. That is the foundation of your body, is your hips. According to the way that the anatomy of a body, it connects, the hips connect both the upper and lower parts of your body and are what keep you mobile. And now at the age of 62 in a new country, I've got a new foundation. It's made out of titanium. That's pretty symbolic to me. And if you go through the other stuff, you'll see that, you know, I didn't come over here because life was great, and I've had a lot of things go wrong, right? But so what happened, and this is going to be redundant, but this is the real video, the video on medical here. What happened is my next door neighbor in Sunport, where I lived for 4 months before getting to move into this place in Fontainebleau on July 1, she had been watching me disintegrate, and she said, "Jan, you've got to get to the ER." So I get to the ER, and I tell them, you know, my knees are inflamed at night and blah, 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 and I hurt my psoas and all this stuff. And she just looks at me and she says, "You're getting an ultrasound." Okay. I had to wait like a week or 2, I think maybe 2 weeks. It might have been longer for the ultrasound. And it was something like €80. And then the doctor comes in after I've had the ultrasound, and he's so perplexed over the results that he keeps saying aloud, like almost like I'm not in the room with him. And he says, "I don't understand. Why is there so much fluid down there at the pelvic area? And why are there so many calcium bits floating around?" I'm going to tell you, it was so painful. And he said, "You need an IRM." That's what they call an MRI. So I get the MRI. He says, a week later, that doctor comes in and he says, "You're getting a new hip. You have osteonecrosis." Okay. So my son and I have no idea what to do. I don't have a doctor. We decide we'll go to the ER again. Let's see, by this point, I'm actually living in I'm living in Fontainebleau now. I don't know I'm living 3 blocks away from the hospital yet. We go from the town where I had the MRI because we didn't have the ability to get one as quickly as we needed here in my town. So we take the Uber over to the hospital, go to the ER here in Fontainebleau, and the doctors look at everything and they say, "You need to talk with a hip specialist." So I call my friend Axel, the RN in Sunport. I let her know that I have to see a hip specialist, and she gets that arranged for just in a few days. I meet with him, and my son Guy is with me again. He's here on summer break from college. and moved in with me in January of this year after graduating in 1 year from Cal Poly San Luis Obispo with a history major. And now he actually, I'll say it in this video, he just got his grad school acceptance, but I won't talk about it's over here. He just let me know about an hour ago. We go to see the hip surgeon, and he asked me a bunch of questions, and he's checking boxes on a form, and I get 21 right out of 30. I only needed 10. He looks at me and he says, "You're getting a new hip. You're going to get it on," he looks at his schedule, he goes, "You're going to get it on September 11. Guy and I just look at each other, and you're like, okay, why not? 911, why not? And he said, "You're going to need someone to stay with you for 2 weeks after surgery, and it can't." And so then we go home, and it can't be Guy if he's to stay on track for getting his degree, because he had to leave at the end of August. And so my friend from high school who lives south of here about 8 hours, he said, yeah, he would come take care of the pets and me for all of this. And then I was alone for 9 days, and by then I can't stand up straight. That's how bad it is, and I'm on the double crutches, and Guy got me set up really well. He got all of the heavy stuff loaded into the house before he left, waters and bulky items, all of those things. And then Robert arrived September 9. September 10, the day before surgery, I check in, and I don't know what to expect. I get a private ensuite with almost floor-to-ceiling windows taking up almost the entire wall to the outside, with windows that I can open up for fresh air and to get full sunlight on me. I did not expect that. And they had me check in the night before because they want to be in charge of you before surgery. It's not a drive-by, as I've said in other videos. This was going to be 5 minutes long. We're at almost 13. Then the next day of my surgery, then they hold me for the night of the surgery and 2 more nights. And then I take a mandatory ambulance home. And then it was the same process again in March of this year for the right hip, only this time I had Guy here for all of that. And I do not worry anymore about my medical needs. And I understand that things are changing rapidly in the United States. And I think that if I were in the US now, I would be even more interested in not being in the United States and coming to a system where everything is based on the care of the patient versus the care of the bottom line. I have a link in my bio here if you want a one-on-one to talk with me about this or any of the other topics that I have talked about on this page, or just if you want to spitball about what a move over here could be like for you and a little more of what it's been like for me. Although it's not any, I have set everything up on both Instagram and this page to be self-service. All right. But if you want that personal one-on-one, then let's go ahead and talk. All right. I call that a chit chat. Top of the line medical care at a fraction of the cost of the United States. I know a lot of people in France who live here are complaining because they hate that people are coming over here and moving here, period, from the United States for all the reasons they don't like that, and they don't like that we're getting to take part of a system that we haven't paid into our whole lives. I will say the government has to have thought this through and probably sees that the contributions that Americans in particular are making to the overall economy, which is a system. It's not just one or two things, it's a system, that it probably makes sense to allow us to be part of the medical system because of the money we inject into the economy. And then I can tell you, as someone who's now becoming an entrepreneur here, I'm going to be injecting even a whole lot more. A bientôt from Fontainebleau, France.